In this video, I'm going to show you how to play with black against the move 1c4. You can totally destroy your opponent with the system I'm going to recommend. It's one of the sharpest ways playing against this opening. And the reason I'm showing it now is that I just played a very crazy, insane game on Lichess. I think it's very instructive, and I have some very special insights for black how to play this particular system. Well, let's see how it goes. I'm playing with the black pieces against someone with the nickname Blitzmeister. And well, I play here the move e5. It's the main way of playing against the English opening. My opponent goes for the move g3. There are different move orders available, but it's all about this. I'm playing here the move knight c6. And the reason I'm playing this move and not knight f6 becomes clear on the next move. Because now after knight c3, I'm playing the move f5. This is a super aggressive system as I'm grabbing space in the center and on the king side as I'm ready to get my knight out, the bishop out, and then it's a very comfortable game to play for black. Now there are different ways for white to play here. Now a lot of people, they would continue here with the move bishop g2. This is not what my opponent played, but I think it's important to tell you what my idea here is as well. Because I'm playing knight f6 in that case, and at some point white has to decide on how to play, either d3 or e3. These are the two main moves. If you do play the move d3, which is the main continuation, then my idea here is to play the move bishop b4, when I have the option anytime to trade off my bishop for the knight, but more importantly is on the next few moves, I'm going to castle. I'm going to play the move d6. I play the move queen e8. I put my queen on h5. I will play f4. Get a bishop to h3, and black has a very strong attack in prospect. Now, I know a lot about it because I recorded one DVD for ChessBase, a complete repertoire for black against the moves 1c4 and 1 knight f3. It's all covered in depth. It's a 7-hour DVD with a lot of opening ideas, middle game positions covered there as well. So you learn more about these structures if you're interested. Check out it on the link mentioned in the description and visit the ChessBase website, of course. Anyway, this was all not played in the game. As one of the reasons people are not playing here the move bishop g2 is they want to play slightly differently. With the move knight f3, they are postponing the development of the king's bishop. I'm playing the move knight f6, and here my opponent played the move d4. And now you understand that white could also have done it with the bishop on g2, but since I'm going to advance my pawn to e4, attacking the knight on f3, it would not be so great for white to have the bishop on g2. Now there are different options for white. White, of course, has to move its knight somewhere, and on the DVD I've covered most of these options. And the main continuation here, strangely enough, is to place the knight at the side of the board. This is not what my opponent played in the game, but the reason this is the best move is that it challenges the pawn on f5. Now, black has a lot of different ways of playing here. You can protect the pawn with something like g6. You can also play the move d6, defending the pawn. Of course, d5 is another possibility, but on my DVD, which is also a download version, by the way, it's not only a DVD, you can just download it on your PC or laptop. And my recommendation here is to play the move bishop b4, which is a very spectacular and super sharp idea as you're ignoring the pawn on f5. I'm not going to tell you everything, but okay, sneak preview. If you take on f5, the idea is to strike in the center with the move d5 to attack the knight on f5. And well, if white is too greedy and plays here the move knight takes g7, taking a second pawn, well, there is the move king f7, when the knight all of a sudden is just trapped. So, very interesting idea, has not been played that many times, only a few Grandmaster games, but I think it's worth checking it out. My opponent played a very logical move. Instead, he went here for the move knight g5, but I don't think the knight is well placed here, and I played here the move h6. So I'm attacking the knight goes back to h3, and I play here super aggressive. More pawn moves on the king side, g5, and it's not even the idea to even further advance my pawns on that side. It's mainly with the aim of restricting the knight on h3, which it's very difficult to get back into the game. Of course, this is a blitz game, and because of that, it will explain the number of terrible mistakes we are making, but it will be a lot of fun. Let's see what's going to happen. As white's move here is f3. I think it's in a way a very logical move to undermine the most important pawn in black's position. If white doesn't play that move, then I have simple ideas to play bishop g7 to castle. I get my pawn to d6, and with such a beautiful space advantage, I have also ideas to try to break open the king side at the right moment. But I have time to prepare it because the position is relatively closed. Anyway, f3 is played. I take the pawn on f3, and here white recaptures with the pawn. So we have only one open file, and here apparently this position was reached in only 2 earlier games in the online database, and like the other guys, I also played here the move bishop g7, which I thought is a very logical move, intending to continue development. It's probably not the best move because now white still has the possibility to grab some space in the center. Instead of playing the move bishop g7, much better here is to solidify the situation in the center first. So that means that my knight on c6 is very good. I can put a bishop on e6, I can put my queen on d7, I can castle queenside. Even if white would decide here to give a check, I can safely place my king on f7. These pawns, they are super aggressive, but they also have the aim of restricting the mobility of white's pieces. So here white is already in serious trouble, strangely enough. But I played bishop g7. My opponent didn't play d5, played the move bishop g2. And I played here queen e7. Before my opponent can actually castle, I decide to give a check. So here, there are some issues. If you play the move queen e2, I can take the pawn on d4. So the queen needs to keep the pawn on d4 defended. But white played king f2, which is not a bad move. In fact, you're threatening here to play the move rook e1 when my queen is actually badly placed. But here, I missed a very nice opportunity. You may pause the video for a second and then you can try to find the move yourself. I castled kingside, which I think is a very logical move, but much stronger is to take the pawn on d4. Knight takes d4. If you take with the queen, there is knight g4 check. With a discovered check, you're winning the queen. Beautiful idea. Of course, white isn't obliged taking the knight, but if you play rook e1 with the intention of pinning the queen on e7, black can just drop back with a knight to e6 and everything is under control. Black is very healthy pawn up. Missed opportunity. I instead castled kingside here. Rook e1. The rook comes into the game, hits the queen. I move the queen to f7, and of course there are possibilities to move the king back to g1 so white can castle artificially, which is playable. Also a possibility here is to play the move d5 to attack the knight, but instead my opponent played b3, protecting the pawn on c4. And well, here again, different possibilities, but look at this bishop on g7. It is fantastically placed on this long diagonal, eyeing the pawn on d4 and indirectly also the unprotected pieces on c3 and a1. But I was not very sharp at this point. Don't forget it's a blitz game, which explains all the mistakes played. I played here the move knight g4. I thought this was a beautiful idea to give a check and to free the path of my bishop to take the pawn on d4. However, much better is to give a check on e4 with a knight. If you take it, here's bishop takes d4 check. And on the next move, I take the knight on c3, after which I hit both the rooks as well. White is in big trouble. But let's see what happened, because this is a lot of fun. I played knight g4. I believed I was completely winning here. But I missed this. F takes g4, capturing the knight. I can take already on d4, but I felt, well, why not take first on g4, opening up the f-file. With check, I'm hitting the knight on h3. So the king goes back to g1, and now I just decided to take on h3, believing that if he takes back, I take on d4 with check, and then again, I'm going to take on c3, winning a lot of material. But I forgot that the bishop doesn't have to take. There is bishop d5. Just winning the queen here. This is a huge blunder. Should I resign now when I'm losing the queen? Well, I decided to play on a bit with the move bishop takes d4 check. The king has only one square to go to. King h1. Looks like relatively safe still, but why not capture just this knight on c3? Attacking both the rooks again. Bishop takes queen. And I decide to take back with the rook. I don't want to take with the king. Then there are too many checks available for white. So I take with the rook. And I'm hoping to get a bit more material. Let's say if I have the chance to take at some point a rook. Maybe I'm not doing too badly. Well, I played rook e8 check, saving that rook is no longer hanging. I have to move my king. And here, interesting moment, because I started to think here. I am 2 pieces for the queen down. But there are some issues. Because if, let's say, white does something about this rook on a1. Let's say you go rook b1. My idea was here to go b6. And if I get my bishop to b7 and be able to hit the king in the corner, together with the bishop coming to d4, then all of a sudden this king is in serious trouble here. Anyway, my opponent didn't play rook b1. He realized the potential danger. But what to do? Should you really try to stick to the extra material? Well, that's what my opponent did. He played here the move bishop d2, offering the exchange of bishops. If I take on a1, then the queen can take back with check, hitting the king. It's very understandable, but it's not a good move. Instead, what white should have done is to play for an attack against my king. And it's not simple yet, because here the bishop is still guarding my own king. So I felt absolutely safe. There are no checks, but the key move is just to sacrifice with the bishop on g5. Now, of course, if you take on a1, once again, queen takes a1, king g6, rook g8, this is going to be checkmate in a few moves. My king is absolutely not safe here. Instead of taking on a1, if I take on g5, there's queen h5 with a crushing attack. Because now this rook on a1, it can be taken. But you take on g5 with check, king h7, queen g8, and next move, you pick up the rook with a mating attack, because these pieces, they remain out of play. Big chance, but very understandable. White didn't play this move. White instead played bishop d2. Now you understand, I should keep this bishop on the board by going back to f6. But I didn't play this move. I didn't consider this bishop takes g5 idea for white at all. So white to protect the pawn, I decided to go back to d4. I was looking for my own chances here. By putting the bishop on d4, I wanted to trap this king in the corner. And still, the same idea. With bishop takes g5, it should be winning for white. But my opponent now played rook to c1. The rook is safe. But I was not interested in the material. I played here the move b6. With a very simple plan now to put the bishop on b7 and set up a huge mating threat by just moving the knight away. The king is trapped in the corner. Also thanks to that beautiful pawn on h3 and the bishop on d4, depriving the king from going anywhere. Now, my opponent realized he's in trouble. I mean, you can take on c8, but I will take back, and I still have fantastic play. The rooks will be connected soon. I have a rook and a knight and 2 pawns with an initiative, so that looks great as well. My opponent decided only now to sacrifice the bishop on g5. But here, I have gained some valuable time. I even don't have to take the bishop. I continue with my plan of bishop b7. So here you see that, give me one more move and the knight goes away and it will be checkmate. My opponent decided to sacrifice the bishop. Now, it's a forcing move. It's check. I have to do something about it. I felt, okay, let's just take it. Queen d2. And now I have to be careful. I want to get out of the checks so that the white pieces, they can no longer go after my king. So king g7 is not too great. It runs into queen g5 check, and white is all right. But after king g6, well, the rook cannot give a check. If you go rook g8, you take it. This rook on a8 is joining the game as well. So queen d3 is the only move. Check, but I go king g7. And now the checks are over. and my opponent decided to take here on a8, I may take back the rook. But much nicer is knight e5 with a discovered check. And it's going to be checkmate. As I said, I'm not interested in the queen, but if you do play queen e4, then it's bishop takes e4 with a beautiful checkmating pattern. So instead, maybe white should not have taken on a8, but let's say if you play rook e4 to close the diagonal, then there's not an immediate way to take advantage of this pin. Well, with rook e8, actually, I'm able to intensify this pressure against the rook on e4. My idea is to move the knight at the right moment and to take on e4 at some point. It's completely crushing. But you see, it's a very entertaining game. I really like this system with this early pawn expansion, and I think it's a very good way to try to get an unbalanced position with space advantage. You put the opponent under pressure. If white plays too slow, then there are also some long-term risks for white regarding its piece coordination. So I hope you like this video, and if you do so, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and even consider purchasing my DVD for chess base, a complete repertoire for black against the moves 1c4 and 1 knight f3. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon again.